Now that we understand what strings are, let's learn some useful string operators. But before we dive into string operators, let me first explain what an operator is. An operator is a symbol or command that tells Python to perform a specific action on a value or variable. Think of it like an instruction. You have a value, you apply an operator to it, and something happens. For example, you already know one operator, the plus sign. When you use plus between two strings, it joins them together. That is an operator. Some operators use symbols like plus or equal to. Some operators use words like the word in. And some operators use a dot followed by a word like dot upper open bracket close bracket or dot lower open bracket close bracket. In Python, these are all operators. They all perform actions on your data. Now, let's learn some specific string operators. The first one is finding the length of a string. The length of a string is the number of characters in it. A character is any single letter, number, space, or symbol. To find the length of a string, we use the len open bracket close bracket command. Let's try it. Open the string.py file. We have all these codes from the previous lesson. Switch to insert mode. Then let's update it. Save. Then let's run it. You can see that it printed 7 for the first name, which is additional, and 8 for the last name, which is Olaguju. Let's count manually to confirm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see additional has 7 characters, which is correct. Let's count the last name also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see that Olaguju has 8 characters, which is correct. So the len open bracket close bracket gives us the number of characters in a string. The next string operation is changing the case of a string. Sometimes you may want to convert a string to all uppercase letters. To do that, we use the .upper operator. Also, sometimes you may want to convert a string to all lowercase letters. To do that, we use .lower operator. Let's update the file. Save. Then run the file. You can see that .upper printed additional all uppercase. and dot lower printed additional all lowercase. Now, notice how we used it. We wrote the variable name followed by a dot followed by the operation. This is the pattern in Python for many string operations. You write the variable, then a dot, then the operator name with brackets at the end. This is something you will see often as we go further in the course. The next operation is replacing part of a string. Let's say you have a sentence and you want to swap one word for another. We use the dot replace operator for that. Let's create a new file named africastrings.py. Press I to switch to insert mode. Then let's type the following codes. Save. Let's run it. You can see that we have Africa is rich in oil displayed, which is exactly what we wrote to be the value of the sentence variable. But we know that Africa's true wealth is not oil. Africa's true wealth is its people, its ideas, and its technology. So let's assume that we want to replace the word oil with technology, but we don't want to tamper with the original value of the variable. We just want to create a new version. To do this, we use the replace operator. Save. Then let's run the file. You can see that the first line printed Africa is rich in oil, which is the original sentence. The second line printed Africa is rich in technology, which is the new version. This is what dot replace does. It takes the old word and swaps it with the new word without changing the original variable. Now, let's try another example with an African leader. Save. Then let's run the file. You can see that it prints Kwame Nkrumah led Ghana to technological independence. This is the Africa we are building, not just political freedom, but technological freedom. Note that the dot replace operation takes two things inside the brackets. First, the word you want to remove, and second, the word you want to put in its place. Sentence dot replace open bracket oil, technology means find the word oil in the sentence and replace it with technology. Also, note that this did not change the original variable. The variable sentence still holds the original value. The dot replace operation only gave us a new version of the string with the replacement applied. This is useful because you can keep your original data while creating many different variations of it. The next operation is removing extra spaces from a string. Sometimes when you receive text from a user, there may be unwanted spaces at the beginning or end of a text. This happens often when people fill out forms or enter information on websites. Python gives us a simple way to clean up this text using the .strip operation. Let me show you. Save, then let's run the file. You can see that the first print statement displays the name with extra spaces around it, but the second print statement displays the name without those extra spaces. The .strip operation removes spaces from the beginning and the end of a string. This is very useful when building software for real users because people do not always enter data perfectly. Before storing names, emails, and other information, developers often clean the data using operations like strip before storing them in the database. As African software engineers, we are not just writing code, we are building systems that will be used by millions of people across our continent. Clean data helps create reliable software. The next operation is splitting a string. Sometimes you have a sentence and want to break it into individual words. To do that, we use .split operation. Let's update the file. Save. Then let's run the file. You can see that it splitted open brackets Africa, comma, will, comma, lead, comma, true, comma, technology. The .split operation broke the sentence into separate words and placed them into a list. You may be wondering about the square bracket. This is called a list in Python. We will learn about lists in detail later in the course. For now, just understand that .split takes a string and breaks it into smaller parts. This operation is useful in many real-world applications. For example, you might split a person's full name into individual names or break a sentence into words for analysis. Many modern AI systems and search engines perform operations similar to this when processing language. Now, let's learn how to check whether a word exists inside a string. Python uses the keyword in for this purpose. Switch to insert mode and let's update the file. Press escape, save. Let's run the file. You can see that the first line printed true. The second line printed false. True means that the word exists inside the string. False means that the word does not exist inside the string. The word Africa is present, so Python returned true. But the word poverty is not present, so Python returned false. This operation is extremely useful when searching text, validating information, or checking user input. Notice that Python gives us a clear yes or no answer. These values, true and false, are called Boolean values. We will learn much about Boolean values later in the course. For now, just remember that many programming decisions are based on simple questions that evaluate to true or false. Now, let me show you one more useful feature. Sometimes, you may want a string to occupy multiple lines, just as we use the \n in the Ubuntu terminal course when we were using echo. We can also use it in Python strings. There are two methods of doing that. Let's practice both methods. Press escape, save. Let's run the file. You can see that both approaches produce the same results. Each phrase appears on a separate line. The first example uses \n, which means start a new line here. The second example uses triple quotation marks. Triple quotation marks allow us to write a string across multiple lines exactly as we want it to appear. Both approaches are correct. You can use whichever one makes your code easier to read and understand. Now, let's push everything to the GitHub. Let's go and check GitHub. You can see that our new files have appeared in the repository.